Users of Reddit, where are the most dangerous places for Americans to travel? I took Russian language for a semester in college in the mid-80s. I remember our professor saying, at that time, Americans were very safe in Russia. If the local criminals messed with a foreigner, the KGB would get involved and they didn't want that smoke. It's kinda similar with the cartels in Mexico. They see a gringo and leave them be. They don't want America getting involved. Venezuela, seriously, do not come if you're American. And if you're white, from any other country, only come if you know someone here you can trust who will accompany you at all times and who has the power to move some influences if you ever get randomly targeted by the military or police. If you get targeted by criminals, then there's no way to help. Our regime did a really good job at spreading powerful hate speech against Yankees and anyone who looks gringo. Plus American citizens are used as hostages for exchange of political prisoners. The military will say you are spies, are trafficker, or a terrorist. I must add though, most people will actually be happy to have you here and will be super kind to you. We also have a country with beautiful nature, culture, and delicious food. We'd love to have you here, but we'd rather not invite you to come until it's absolutely safe. Don't really know if this holds true in every case. Our family friend loves Caracas and has been going every year for a decade. He says he just usually walks around with no shirt, flops, and basketball shorts. He said if you don't have anything to steal you're good. But this is also a guy who specifically waits until unrest happens in countries to take advantage of pricing and lack of crowds. Probably that island off the southern coast of India where that uncontacted, indigenous tribe kills everyone that tries to come ashore. North Sentinel Island, which is actually east of India. Fun fact, the Indian Navy even permanently patrols the seas around North Sentinel Island, to prevent anyone from getting in contact with the indigenous tribe on the island. If you want to learn more about the history of why it came so far to this from the colonial era by the British to now, well, it is illegal to travel there even for Indians, so it is not just dangerous for Americans in particular. It is forbidden to travel there for anyone. Strictly speaking, the island is Indian territory, which makes the attacks on interlopers murder, but the government has no intention of prosecuting them. They're to be left alone, and ignoring their wishes is just arrogance. I'll never forget the time I, an American, was in Tanzania and trying to arrange passage to Madagascar via a shipping vessel. I met someone who knew someone who knew someone who could get me on the ship for very cheap. Eventually, the captain told me he would grant me passage, but warned me that if pirates boarded their ship, they would likely take me with them and hold me hostage. I didn't fully trust that the captain wouldn't sell me to the pirates, haha. So I never did make that trip. Amsterdam was a nice alternative though. I'm Kenyan, Tanzania's neighbor, been in Tanzania as well for a few years. I tell you now, you did the right thing. First of all, if anything happened, neither the Tanzania nor Madagascar governments would have done anything. Would have been kidnapped or worse 100%. The sea route is notorious for it. It's even possible a ship owner or someone that knows where they're going tips the pirates off for a share. If you ever do go to Tanzania though, Zanzibar is a good alternative. It's not Madagascar, but it's a beautiful island, and I trust you'd enjoy your experience from local cuisine to the architecture and just being immersed in the culture. Also, no kidnapping on transit or pirates or Mau Caribou Sana. I did visit Zanzibar. The red color bus monkeys were cool, but nothing compared to how I imagine seeing lemurs in the wild would be, haha. My only advice to people in Zanzibar, if the ATM Instanet town isn't working, don't follow a guy named Jeff to the other ATM. There isn't another ATM, and Jeff will not want Zambian kwacha when he robs you. However, if you agree to buy several football jerseys from him, he will not harm you. Yes, this is a real story from my trip, haha. Oh, and don't trust the taxi drivers when you want to buy a ticket to the ferry that takes you to Zanzibar. They will take you to a fake ticket place that sells you a one-way ticket, not allowing return passage. This didn't happen to me, but some of my friends. The US State Department has a color-coded advisory system about how dangerous countries are for Americans to visit. The highest level, don't travel there for any reason, are Venezuela, Haiti, Russia, Belarus, Ukraine, North Korea, Myanmar, Afghanistan, Iran, Iraq, Syria, Yemen, Libya, Sudan, South Sudan, Somalia, Mali, and Burkina Faso. My most upvoted comment ever is about how insane the State Department page is for Somalia. I love the before you travel tips about designating a hostage negotiator and leaving DNA samples so your body can be identified. Basically a really professional way of saying screw around and find out. Everyone who commented, oh yeah, I remember that comment. I sincerely love every one of you. Reading those feels like running into an old friend. See you next time. There's an AskReddit about State Department travel advisories for Somalia. Mali has the same warning too. First thing it says is draft a will. I've been in corporate long enough to realize that those pages, although serious, were really just created to say how do we tell the person who wants to travel that they're dumb in 40 different ways, and make them realize they're going to die? You see, Americans don't like being told what to do, so they can't just say we're banning you for your own good. Instead they will write a sentence that ends in funeral wishes, etc. to make it clear that anyone who travels there is a dumb person, and this is their way of saying, we told you so. That's a good point. It's funny to read the difference with advices from other governments. US is by far the most dramatic but might be more effective. Some of these countries aren't dangerous to Americans specifically. They are just dangerous places to travel to in general, irrespective of what your nationality is. Like, nobody is traveling to Ukraine or Venezuela right now. With that said, being a Westerner, especially white, affluent looking, will make you a target for crime in pretty much any country stricken by poverty, war or social conflict. Even in politically friendly countries like South Africa, you still need to be extra vigilant. As an American who loves to travel in and around South Africa, it's a beautiful country filled with some wonderful people. I would only recommend it for seasoned travelers with street smarts. The highs are high, but as a white tourist, it's hard to go a full day in some states without having to consciously dodge a scam or other unpleasant situation. Easy to navigate if you know what to look for, but not so easy for those who don't know. On a similar note, go to Lesotho if you can make it. You might want to hire a guide to get the most out of the attractions in the country, but the hospitality offered by any random Basotho village is world class. Went to South Africa this year. Never felt unsafe, but definitely some sketchy areas. Somalia. Realistically, is Somalia safe for anyone? As an Irish person, I'd like to imagine we get on with everyone all over the world, but Somalia is one of those places I will never even think of going. I met a guy that was trying to see a football match in every country in the world. He went to Mogadishu for a couple of days and his hotel was bombed in the weeks after he left. No regrets though. That's an amazing goal. Is he documenting his travels everywhere? The thought of going to soccer games in lesser-known countries intrigues me, but it would never ever do anything anywhere close to what he's doing. That's crazy to think about. It seems impossible enough for someone to simply visit all countries to do that and see a football match while you're there. Madness. I was dumbfounded when my Spanish teacher said that Iran, Tehran specifically, was a popular destination for Spanish tourists. But he was like, yeah, you can't go there, white American. I have a Croatian citizenship, and in fact many people speculate that Croatians originated from Iran, at least language-wise, and thus Iranians are welcoming to Croatians. Have had friends go there and said it was great, super welcoming people, cheap, etc. Just don't go with an American passport. I once dated an Iranian man in Canada for educational purposes. He would always talk about how much he hated Americans. Needless to say, we didn't last very long for a variety of reasons, but this always struck me. Can you blame him? America is directly responsible for the destruction of its very beautiful nation, and the installation of the current theocratic authoritarian government. And America continues to harass and make life hard for Iranians. I've had many friends from Iran and I was often the only American they knew personally. Almost every one of them has expressed to me how upset they are at America. One, in particular, stands out as, why don't you just leave us alone? Not you, but America, you just leave us alone. That one was a few years ago when the value of their currency was crashing. hard. This isn't unique to Iranians, either. Syrians, too, often feel similarly. It's certainly not a great look to come to the West then crap all over it though, sure. But to act as if America, and the West at large, isn't deserving of it is ignorant at best. 50% of Americans said they'd never vote for a Muslim as president, and a lot of Americans hate Iranians, so it's probably mutual. Yeah, I'm sure some young diverse communities in New York are welcoming, but that's not America as a whole. Americans, everyone, if you're not familiar with East Oakland, just don't go. You park in the wrong spot or have too nice of a car, or don't know the etiquette. Just so many ways you could accidentally get shot. If you say a prayer too short, you'll be protected. I used to work at a bakery in East Oakland. I didn't have a car, so I was taking BART to the nearest location and walking into the neighborhood around 87th Street. Sketchy if you would always hear gunshots and basically zero police presence. Working that changed me psychologically and emotionally. I'm much less trusting, and much more aware of my surroundings, even in better neighborhoods. Later on, I was working as an Uber driver and had a general policy of avoiding East Oakland as much as possible. A few times I had a rider who was getting dropped in EO. I used to work the late night shift, and I would drop them in a neighborhood and would get out fast, as oftentimes a group of young men would materialize out of the darkness headed directly for me in the 30 seconds or so while my passenger is unloading. They were always giving me murderous glares as I zip out of there right past them. I had a passenger in Oakland tell me a story of how he, a big burly fella, got carjacked in broad daylight by a girl with a gun. All bets are off in Oakland. I avoid that city at all costs, even though downtown Oakland is fairly hip. Dominican Republic, because Dominicans they see Americans as bank accounts. If a white-skinned American leaves Punta Cana, he tends to be a victim of scam, robbery, or even several friends can combine to take him somewhere and drug him. There is a YouTuber, I don't know if he is American or Australian, who traveled there, and because the motorist he hired to take him to the neighborhoods had a heart and took care of him, but you could see through that camera that there were people who wanted to cheat him or even take extra money from him, not to say all the stares at him from everyone. Have you all ever been to Juarez? I've been to the deepest depths of cartel territory in Michoacan and Jalisco, and they don't mess with foreigners. Nothing causes them more headaches than a dead tourist. True. I lived in Puerto Vallarta, Jalisco for a few months. The whole vibe is welcoming, and a lot of foreigners, mainly Americans and Canadians, go visit or permanently move to live there. You'll notice there aren't people out on the streets trying to clean your windshield at red lights for money, or people watching over your car at parking places. The cartel that controls that region wants the city to be as clean and organized as possible to ensure tourists keep coming back. Apparently, if they see any homeless in the city, they will take them and give them a job within the cartel to keep them off the streets. They even invested in the city buses. The newer city buses have a logo on the back, CNG, Cartel Nueva Generation, all paid by the cartel. There aren't many chances of you getting robbed. I heard that if the cartel figures out you're out there committing crimes, and not on their behalf, they will find you, cut your hands, and feed you to the crocodiles. The few amounts of violence that you hear about are mainly between the cartel and or gangs. Someone got shot, it was a hit. A business burned down, probably didn't pay the protection fee. But overall a great city. Same rules apply if you wanna go visit. Be smart and don't go looking for trouble. Antarctica, pretty cold there. There are 2 very large American-run research bases in Antarctica staffed all year round. You can also take one of dozens of cruises that go there every year. Larger ships just do a cruise past, but small expedition ships allow you to actually step foot on the continent for 4+ days. It ain't cheap, but it's certainly not unsafe. Don't forget Palma. Been to 97 countries. The vast majority of people all over the world are the same. Decent people trying to make a living and hoping things will be better for their kids. Africa, Asia, Middle East, all the same. Governments are usually the problem, not the people. Which was the one that scared you the most? Probably Algeria, with Angola and Georgia not far behind. Not places for tourists for sure. Yeah, Angola seems scary, not much to see I can imagine. In my case, I wouldn't say scared, but I felt really uncomfortable in Egypt. I'm from Uruguay. What about South America? Only been to Venezuela and Brazil. They were fine. Was also in the very southern end of Colombia, but that area was so unsafe, weren't allowed ashore. Like Letitia, Colombia, there's hostels there and plenty of people backpacking the Amazon. Surprised to hear this. Letitia and along the Amazon River is very safe, but pretty sure the area of the border along the Putumayo River is like US State Department level 4 advisory where they tell you to draft a will before going and all that. Iraq. I went there on holiday last year, and honestly, felt perfectly safe the whole time. Even wandering home through the cities drunk on my own in the middle of the night gave me no issues. It may be the friendliest place I've ever visited. I did stick to the Kurdish region up north. I guess things may be a little different down south.